you don't ever need to wonder what to paint again. That's if you love TVs and movies as much as I do. Let me explain. I'm clearly late to the game because I only just watched this movie a few weeks ago. My distraction level was off the charts because every time a new scene began, I was obsessed. No, not with the dialogue and the storyline, but with the color and the texture, pattern, the lighting. So my inability to follow the storyline of this exquisitely aesthetic film is your creative gain, friends. Some movies are what I would call moving paintings, and this is one of them. Expert art direction and styling can turn a few second moment of a film into a wondrous composition of color and light. And just one of these moments is all the inspiration you need to create a masterpiece in watercolor. Here are a few of my favorite scenes from this version of Emma. I feel like you could just let this movie run, close your eyes, and hit the pause button anywhere, literally, and you'd have an incredible image full of the most delicious details. So here's how this works. Number one, you find a scene you love, and it's as simple as doing a Google image search, and you will find tons. Number two, decide what you'll paint. I gotta be honest, flowers, leaves, fruits, patterns are an easy leap. Number three, choose your color palette, and that's easy. It's inspired by the scene you chose in step number one. Okay, now there is an extra step in here, but let me explain. If you're the watercolor obsessed like I am, you know I have a massive collection of watercolor palettes, you want to take this extra step and choose which one feels like it suits this experience most. And for me, it was my newest handmade watercolor palette from Ocean Paper. Literally, it's like she designed this little collection of handmade pigments for this project. Now, if you are level-headed and quote-unquote normal, you have a couple of palettes and maybe you have one, and that's what you're going to use. So you might be mixing some colors, and that's okay. If you want to learn more about how I handle color mixing or don't, check the link below and watch that video when you have a moment or two. And let's face it, ever since I told you that I have an insane collection of watercolor palettes, you're probably going to want to watch the other video that I have linked down below as well, because I review a bunch of my favorites. Okay, back to the task at hand. Let's get into this. Vogue even wrote about this movie, and that's where I found some incredible images, and I had a hard time deciding which one I wanted to be my inspiration for this painting. Look at these. Oh, this is the one. This one right here. These two, you gotta watch the movie. They are a bunch of Cracker Jacks, but they're funny just the same. But those sage walls and the corally dress and the dark contrasting black details are just chef's kiss. And of course, those pinks. Ridiculous. All right, we're going with this one, friends, and just have this image in your view somewhere. You don't have to refer to it over and over and over again. You don't have to obsess over referring to it, but just so it's in your view as you paint, it's a good thing. All right, friends, diving right in. I don't really have a plan today for composition. I just know where my color inspiration is coming from, and honestly, that's all that really matters to me today, right now. If you're curious about how I put together compositions, I have a few links for you below that you might want to check out, but do it later on. Let's just get into it. I'm going right in with this gorgeous series of corally pink peachy colors, and starting just a simple multiple petaled flower with the curved edge of my dagger brush facing down towards the page. Friends, there are a few things that are helpful when you are basically taking something like a movie or a page from a magazine, or if you're finding inspiration in a weird place, let's say. You might be wondering, well, how do I translate the inspiration, what got my creative juices kind of going, into a painting of something that really doesn't relate? Because, friends, obviously, this floral piece that I'm starting here, there really isn't a ton of florals in my inspiration image. Here it is again. Take a look just to remember what that looked like. There's beautiful sage green walls, there's incredibly dressed human beings, there's some desserts in the foreground, but I'm not just painting something I'm seeing in front of me. So how do we translate? Number one, set your expectations that what you're going to paint most likely will have nothing to do in terms of subject matter when you compare it to your inspiration image. Just take that off the table. Number two, just focus on one element, like I'm doing today. I love the color of this scene, and I'm translating that color into the painting I'm creating. That's it, nothing else. Number three, have some additional reference images. So for example, I'm painting floral. Grab some Google images of your favorite flowers, garden roses, some leaves, some vines, and that way you have something to refer to that isn't necessarily happening in your inspiration image. Or just work from memory and make it up. All right, let's hop back to the painting, see where I'm at with this one. Friends, I've worked in some of those gorgeous, soft sage greens with some simple leaf shapes. I'm using my press, drag, and lift technique, and I'm dragging and lifting slowly and gradually so I get that nice point on those leaves. I will say this, I am definitely keeping a little less pigment on my brush than you might be used to me doing because I want that kind of low contrast. So I don't want a lot of punchy, very saturated, very opaque color on my paper, because that's not what I'm seeing in my inspiration image. I'm seeing lower contrast, except for the black in some of their attire. But overall, the colors, there isn't a lot of lights and lows, lights and darks basically that I'm seeing overall. So I'm trying to replicate that in my painting. Here's a little composition note, because I know you love to hear about composition from me, friends. I did start right smack dab in the middle of the paper on this one. This is a square piece of watercolor paper, but you know what? I'm okay with it. I usually tell you not to do that, but it's working here. I have the nice big orangey peachy garden rose, and then to the right of it, I've got a slightly smaller cluster that takes up a little bit less space in the garden rose, and it works. It just works. I almost can't explain why it works. There's a je ne sais quoi going on with this composition because I did break a big rule starting out, but you know what? I'm okay with it. All right, back to the painting, friends. I'm adding a few berries here just above and to the right of the red berries, and they are, I'm not going to say black, but they are very strong, intense, deep color, and that is definitely my connection to some of the attire in the inspiration photo. Continuing on here, adding some really fun little sweet pea looking flowers that are more of an orangey red, and just love that kind of swirl backward C curve, and it adds so much movement to the composition. Friends, are you having so much fun? Because I am. And if you are, give this video a boop, that's a like, because that lets everyone know, you guessed it, that they need to get in on the fun as well. And friends, get into comments. You know the drill. The conversations here are pretty darn epic. Let me know what movie you're going to paint. I want to know. All right. Don't be afraid to elaborate on your inspiration image. Some of my color choices here are definitely more saturated or brighter than the inspiration photo, but that's okay. It really is just a springboard. I'm adding a few of those orangey yellow sweet peas down in the bottom left-hand corner, and that is a compositional decision just to balance that organic, beautiful spray of the same flowers in the upper right-hand corner. Only doing 3, a hint of a 4th, that'll do it. You might be thinking at this point, okay, Christy, you definitely stumped me here. You're a weirdo. Why would I want to paint a movie? Okay, maybe you're not a movie buff like me, but here are 3 other things you could become inspired by and turn into a painting. Number 1, look through an art history book or any book that has interesting art kind of stuff in it, home decor, craft magazines, whatever it may be, and find a page in that magazine that you love, that has cool colors, has a cool pattern, whatever it may be. Number 2, go for a short walk, like literally a 2 or 3 minute walk, and take a photo of something that catches your eye and turn it into inspiration for your next painting. Number 3, look to the walls and the surfaces in your own home. What are some family heirlooms? Maybe there's a quilt that someone made for you that you absolutely love. Maybe there's a special painting that's been passed down through the generations. You could turn that piece into inspiration for your next painting. I think what I love most about this kind of exercise, and I've been doing this for ages, like I literally will just grab a scarf or something that I love from my closet and turn it into a painting. In my last book, Making Art for Joy's Sake, I grabbed a piece of vintage fabric and I turned it into an entire chapter on how to create a watercolor pattern based on a tiny little 5 by 5 inch swatch of fabric. I love this project because it balances focus and freedom. You have the focus of an inspiration image that tells you these are the colors you love, this is the pattern you love. But then you have the freedom to interpret those details into a painting of anything you love and of any subject matter you're most comfortable with. All right, friends, let's head to comments one more time. Let me know if you'd like to see this painting, but with step-by-step instruction, because, we didn't get to that today, clearly. And I painted another movie not too long ago. It's one of my favorites. You need to watch this one next. Happy painting, friends.